to say that welcome to the Ecosystem and Governance Working Group meeting, and that we are obligated to stick to the meeting agenda, which is open discussion, and Mackie was going to present what things that we could do with Ecosystem and Governance Working Group meeting. If Drummond does show up, we will also have a look at his documentation. And I think everyone here has signed the agreements and the participation and the non-compete that we are supporting because of that documentation. So that covers the boilerplate of the meeting that we're all very familiar with at this point. Sound good?
That's great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so maybe if you'd like, Carly, do I start with sharing the
Yeah,
screen and walking
yeah,
you guys
yeah,
through the
yeah,
strategy? So maybe, to bring also Lynn on board with us. So Lynn, we've been discussing over the past few weeks, myself, Carly, Stephen, like also, like we've reached out to Eric, but I think, he's having some other commitments. So, the purpose was to really look into like being one of the co-chairs with the team here, Carly, Stephen, and Eric. So maybe, like in our last meeting, Scott mentioned that he's going to, maybe, really hand off like being co-chair of this group. So, in terms of what we're actually seeing is how can we like enhance our current stance and look into new areas we haven't covered maybe before, or at least trying to really coordinate well within our internal ecosystem. So as you're aware, the ecosystem and governance more or less is considered the voice of trust over IP, I would say. So there's a lot of guest speakers series happening and led by the working group. Also, bite-sized trust series by Carly. So I think those are really one of the big, I would say, areas that we would want to also shed light on. So beside other things that we can elevate coordination with the respective working groups. So, the purpose of this strategy is really to propose a direction and, more of a collaboration model for the ecosystem and governance working group. We want to really focus on certain pillars that we believe, if we really do it well, will, take us to a better state. So, building on the current platform we already have and the strengths, we believe, there are a number of areas we can start also expediting. So we do have like five pillars, I would say. So 4+1, the fifth one is more about, like really restructuring, like working on this restructuring mandate. So maybe we'll have to cut down some of the current areas to really focus internally and try to establish a handshake within our internal ecosystem. So this includes like maybe deciding on a rebalance for the guest speaker series. And like the first one is really governance alignment with the tech stack. So by that one, like each pillar has its own objective, rationale, and some responsibilities and outcomes. So for the first one, like here, essentially, we're looking for like a structured, ongoing, and accountable collaboration with the technical working groups. So in this regard, we're looking to like really help advance, for example, like emerging concepts like TSP, MCP, Dicary ACDC, TRQP, and AI-enabled trust mechanisms. So, we want to ensure that, those implementations, as we move forward, start to get referenced, understood, and governed. So, the governance frameworks as well must reflect actual protocol behavior. So, we want to ensure that we are, like, in a way, trying to track what's happening with those protocols once they are deployed and implemented. So in terms of those, the responsibilities that will help us drive this is really looking for a way to codify rules and policies. For example, for like node operators, issuers, verifiers, and intermediaries. So also defining accountability structures for any actors participating in those exchange relationships, ensuring, the governance frameworks evolve in lockstep with protocol iterations, advocating for tested use cases as well. So on the use cases, we are going to also shed light in terms of, some advancements happening and maybe the ORCID model as well. So yeah, Carly, please.
Yeah, just to say that so when I go to the Carry Stack working group, I go to their monthly meeting anyway. And there, Sam always talks about, well, this is up to the governance structure. So they'll be like, yeah, we're going to allow this or whatever. And then they're like, but what should we do here? And then Sam always says, well, that is what the governance defines. So there is, when Carrie talks, they acknowledge, but I haven't heard them talk about the building of any additional governance that would go into controlling an ecosystem that uses a Carry technical stack. So I just wanted to say that that's a gap that perhaps this would address that we could consider.
Yeah, and essentially, as you said, like Carly, we're looking to, like really step up and ensure, like we're, like coordinating well with, whether the carry stack or other protocols being developed. So that means, like really looking for a way, like to, become more transparent in terms of how we govern those things going forward. What is the, minimum requirement to make, those protocols like really succeed like in the outer world, I would say, like even in the market. So really trying to find those like areas where we can establish a firm handshake with the team is essentially what we are looking for in this pillar. So like the outcome.
And the decentralized trust graph, that also, I mean, there's a whole lot of governance in there that's not been addressed that we could consider. Yep.
Yeah, of course.
Part are you talking about specifically?
Yeah,
Pardon?
Eric.
Which part are you talking about specifically? Did we scroll down? I missed it.
No, the decentralized trust graph that I'm just mentioning now.
No, about the links with governance. Is that for a specific point here that you're talking about?
No, I was just addressing
no,
the
the first one.
whole point, which is if you scroll up, then this is under, what is your heading here again? Your heading
Yes, the
is,
governance,
Oh, governance.
tech stack
Okay.
handshake. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Hello, Carla.
Hi, Carla.
Hi,
And just,
Carla.
yeah, sorry, apologies. I came in late as well. So right now we're just going through the strategy just because I missed the agenda for the meeting.
Yeah. So the agenda is if Drummond does show up, we can also talk about any documentation that he has done, that he's written. And Mackie is giving a proposal of things that maybe to consider because he's looking to join as a co-chair, and then direction for ecosystem governance working group.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so Eric, maybe you haven't missed much actually. We're just starting with the first pillar. So this strategy is going to look into five key pillars. So the governance alignment with the tech stack, road mapping and use case deployment, development of group emerging concepts, for example, ORCID, knowledge artifacts like bite-sized trust series, continuing basically, and also like looking to rebalance the guest speaker series in order to focus on the strategy, rollout over the next few months. So it's more about like really trying to like identify areas for improvement and more collaboration with the with our internal ecosystem. So.
Okay.
And like maybe moving on to the next pillar, if is there any questions like Lynn, Kevin, or Carla, any questions before we head to the next pillar?
No, not on my side.
All right. So moving on to the next one. So here it's more about a roadmap and use case deployment. So we're looking, to create a unified roadmap that articulates where the ecosystem is heading. So how next iterations of protocols and governance should be deployed. So more or less a plan, if you will, like how we would, develop a trust over IP ecosystem roadmap, integrating, all of the protocols that we are having in place, at least ones that we believe we can support from a governance perspective, like really identifying, high value cross-working group use cases, There are things also happening, for example, in the agentic AI. I think Eric is leading that work as well, part of the AI
Mhm.
team. So how can we like really look into use cases that can bring more of the working groups with us? So plus, obviously the protocols, which is the most important piece in all of this.
Mhm.
Yeah. So then,
I have just
basically,
one question, one point
Erica's
on that.
question.
yeah, please.
Yeah, right. I think that's probably a good focus is, as you said at the beginning, we are not the mouthpiece, but sort of the outward public facing in a lot of ways.
Front door.
Front
Yeah.
door. But and like again, I would love to see TSP. I know we've been working on it, and I think Wenjing has a working version of something that is showing TSP, working. I think that should come to this group. And I mean, we don't always have to get outside presenters. We need to be presenting from the inside as well. And
Exactly. Yeah.
so I would, yeah, I'd love to see that. And the same thing, Carrie is doing some really interesting things. And in fact, I do have Carla, the OVC project. So we will have them come, I think, in March to present because they're embracing Glyph and LEIs and
After the Mobile World Congress.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
That's really
so
great.
that'll be good. But yeah, it was just a point to say that I think promoting from our internal working groups is a good idea.
Yeah,
Carla?
exactly. Yeah, Carla, please.
When in March?
I don't know if I put it on the calendar, but I think the 19th. Does that sound right?
19th. Yep. So and they have the link to fill in. I'm having a look at the presentation page. So
Awesome. No, I'll
yeah,
get them.
awesome. We have March 5th, Real Eye, so that I'll be generating their stuff next, and then good. Thank you.
Mhm. And there's another one
Excellent.
after that as well. Still, sorry, Carla.
Yeah, Carla, please.
Oh, no problem. Oh, put my hand down. There we
Yeah,
go.
what Glyph is doing is really interesting. And actually, yesterday a part of the diff, we had a presentation by Kevin Bull in terms of like a did method they're currently working on. So that's really a very good addition to the ecosystem. So
Yes, I did. I actually did want to bring that up at the meeting today, so maybe it's a good time.
Mhm.
yeah, please
Um,
go ahead. Yeah.
when we talk about carry ACDC, we also should recognize that there's a third specification that the steering committee just approved, and that's Caesar. When we refer to them, I think we should refer to all three at the same time. And the did WebS spec, excuse me, the next step, because of the momentum of getting did WebS approved as an approved did method under diff, means that I think Kent told me this morning that they're finished with their last PR before the Carry Suite Working Group can
Yeah.
think of approving the specification to go to the steering committee to become the fourth standard specification of trust over IP. So perhaps that should go on the roadmap as well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think it's really a good, addition. We'll factor this, as part of the carry ACDC adoption pathways. Um, so then, we have the third pillar where we're going to look as well into emerging concepts, like for example, the ORCID data model presented by Carly and team during our last symposium. So how can we like really analyze such emerging concepts and see like whether we can really stress test them internally before like really looking into a bigger kind of data modeling and protocols. Yeah, yeah, please, Carly. You're on mute. Yeah.
Just a typo, orchid is spelled like that, but also I put in the chat because I put up the orchid example to try and spur conversation and inspire others to think about the same idea in their system. I don't think Orchid is actually going to implement this, but I wanted them to see they could and that the parts are there. And then I got thinking about what do we ultimately want to support because we're members of Trust over IP. What are we, what do we want to build?
Yeah.
Or how do we want to advance the world, whatever, you know? And I was thinking that we're wanting to produce open specifications that can be used in the world that will advance trust over the internet. Because, I mean, a lot of the concerns that originally came from trust over IP was that it was being consolidated. You had to go through one of the big five or whatever in order to have an identity that could be trusted to be able to be used in other places on the internet. And we wanted to, and this is just me, my outsider view. I came later to the party or whatever. Because identity had been going on for a long time. But if
Yeah.
not I don't think my statement is correct, but what do we want to build in the world and how do we help it happen? So that's where my work aligns. So bite-sized trust and stuff, I'm like, well, you can't build it if you don't know what the problems are and what the considerations you should have. And the specifications are great. They're like, here's what you need to do in order to build something. And perhaps ecosystem could be like, here's how we help you construct an ecosystem using the tools, learn a
Yeah.
bit more, put it together like this, and go out and if this is the easy pathway. I mean, how can we compete with it's hard to compete with so much money when they have so much money to throw at a system in order to capture it. And
Yeah.
we don't want to be part of we aren't the ones who are doing the capturing, and nobody else can play because what are the options? So we wanted to create the options here in Trust over IP. Does
Yeah.
that sound general? And one of the reasons that one of the ways that you can capture or fight capture is to make it really easy to do something else.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think, we want to be a launchpad, as you said, like for really any emerging concepts. So it's not only what we propose internally, but also like trying to be like, we really have good examples. Like, for example, the did methods working group part of diff, like this is really a very successful launchpad, I would say. So
Yes.
we can really like benchmark ourselves against other ecosystems and see what we can do internally in terms of, like really embracing what's outside if it aligns with our mission, the trust over IP, as well as, like really looking for internal, use cases that we can evolve. Yeah.
Yeah. So the orchid example was me trying to be like, here's how anyone can do it. And this
100%.
is what it would look like if Orchid did it. And you can go find there is working tech. You can go download it at these places and
Yeah.
so on. So yeah, I don't know yeah. Eric?
Well, just to distinguish between what we want to do at ecosystem and governance versus trust over IP, and the tech stack working group and the governance stack, we are the governance stack now, but I think we're promoting and again communicating that these technologies exist and they are ready for deployment and they are stable, let's say, and I don't think any of us have the energy or the time to actually work as a incubator sort of foundry to bring in ecosystems and help get them in place. And then because I mean it's long-term work and a lot of effort. But I think we just want to make sure that and I don't think we need to be purists, meaning and we haven't been only trust over IP technologies. It's really anything that's moving us in the direction of distributed trust and more resilient infrastructure based on decentralization, whatever. But yeah, I would just be a little bit more realistic in what we're trying to achieve.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I second that, Eric. I absolutely agree. I mean, I like painting a bigger picture and then picking something that you can, well, for
Mm.
me, bite-sized trust was bite-sized, so I could do that. But there's, I'm sure we can find something else to start making this vision possible.
Yeah,
What?
Lynn, please. Yeah, Lynn.
Yes, I was just wondering if is this at systems architecture level or you know for me governance and ethics needs to be at the bottom as opposed to something that's applied after the fact. Because it keeps changing, whatever. But sorry for my not understanding this technical part of it, but just trying to figure out where it's coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, so essentially, like we are really looking in terms of what's happening inside, like as Eric mentioned. So trying, to get the different protocols, understood as well as announced. I would say, like trying to bring, external thought leadership, like for example through the speaker series. So we're really trying to coordinate with what's happening internally, as opposed to, to trying to create our own tech, architecture. So, and also like being mindful of the art of the possible. We do have very limited, time. People are, like either engaged on projects or business development. So dedicating time to this effort would require, a number of FTEs sometimes. So I'd say like it's more about, like trying our best to at least have a roadmap and try our best to, try and implement whatever we can. So we're trying, to have a balanced approach, being mindful of everyone's availability as well. So, but it's more about like really getting the, where the voice, in a way, like the voice of trust over IP. So how can we, really, bring more difference compared to previous ways of handling this? Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Perhaps if we pick a use case that's specific that people are already working on implementation, and then they might be like, oh, like if we were to specifically choose to work on something for the decentralized trust graph,
Yeah.
some of those people might be like, oh, I want to partake in that activity because I'm looking to use it and I need that. I need it, not just, isn't that a cool idea?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's also part of what what we will try to shortlist as part of, like the roadmap and use case deployment. So we want to have like quick wins, as you said, things that we can really start with and show progress, and then, building, other success stories. But really leveraging what we have internally is key. We do have already a rich repository, I would say, that we can look internally. So, and even the purpose of this strategy is to really look inside more than, at least for in the initial stages of this strategy, until, we really have more bandwidth to be able to absorb what's happening outside. So, that was with respect to pillar 2 and 3. So moving on to the pillar 4, and I think Carly mentioned this also as part of our call, and also we are trying to highlight here that the bite-sized trust series will essentially, continue. So it is like really helpful. A lot of people, really started to understand what trust over IP is doing because of this. And, like the symposium was one of those ways to really look for, people's interest in what we do as well. So it was really a successful series that we would want to continue. So, essentially, explaining complex trust concepts, supporting ecosystem literacy, and amplifying trust over IP's thought leadership. So, we want to ensure, like those, successful stories, like really continue and move to the next level. So this will be a critical pillar of our strategy over the next period. So moving on to the fifth pillar. So it's really, like again, rebalancing the guest speaker series. So we're trying to ensure that whenever, for example, we have a guest speaker, they're, at least aligning with the group's agenda and strategic pillars. So essentially aligning with the Trust over IP mission. I've had, like conversations as well with Stephen, like where he, expressed concerns about, like we really need to have speakers who help us advance what we do internally as well in terms of produced protocols or concepts. So we'll try to rebalance the guest speaker series, get it more focused. I think live sessions on March is an important one. Like it will help us build. It will be part of the roadmap to at least the carry ACDC adoption pathways. So I think getting it more focused as opposed to really like abandoning it, because it's very important. It's one of the ways that we can get engaged with the different stakeholders. And it's been like more or less, I would say, successful, but more of like a focused approach to those upcoming sessions will be good. So yeah, I think with that, maybe before I proceed to the next steps, if there's any questions or comments. Yeah. Yeah, Carly, what do you
I
say?
was just thinking that we'll have to, we can post this up onto the Ecosystem and Governance Working Group's Google Drive, assuming everybody has access to it. And then
Yeah.
anything that we do ultimately agree to, then we'll have to post that onto, oh gosh, Confluence. I haven't edited Confluence in forever.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll be sharing it, obviously, as it's a draft at this stage. Also, if anyone would like to provide their comments on the document, I'll be sharing this. Maybe now I can also share it with you guys.
Yeah, but move it into the folder on ecosystem. I mean, if you send me a link, I'm gonna close the thing and never find the link again.
Okay, I'll then share it with you, like post this call.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so with the next steps, basically, we're trying to differentiate ourselves, as we mentioned, creating more shared goals with the tech stack working groups. Also one of the important areas is serving as a liaison with the steering committee. So I think a number of us like also are part of the steering committee, so we want to ensure that we're not diverting from the overall objectives. So I think this will bring closer alignment. I would say with the steering committee. So just trying to cascade cascade whatever makes sense to the ecosystem and governance. Yeah, please, Carly.
Oh, I was gonna say, so I mean, this is a cool list. It's also okay. So now let's turn it into next week's. We've got a meeting, well, or in 2 weeks, and maybe we have a presenter, but in 2 weeks, when we have our next meeting, what are we going to sit down and start working on first? Because probably we could only do, I mean, it's a great list. Let's pick something from it.
Yeah,
That. Eric?
I would say that we probably go with the chairs, the co-chairs, to kind of distill this down so that we
Yeah.
can align
Yep.
internally before we bring it to the rest of the working group. So we do that first bit of work.
Yeah. Now, from the working group, to hear from the working group, what are
Yeah.
the working group interested in working on? What need do they see? What would they,
Yeah.
what would they spend resources developing? What would give
Yeah.
them value?
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah, I think that's the first critical step. So, and I think also as part of the next steps, I've highlighted this. So, you know, leadership review and discussion. So we need to validate those strategic pillars, confirm, the boundaries, and then also aligning, at some point with the steering committee. I think, then defining the fields of play or the work streams and who is going to own what. So I think this also needs to align with, availability of everyone. Because I think it will need some time and effort to really try build those pillars. So then, like obviously having some sort of OKRs just, to track our progress. I think, like implementing those will help us as well, see if we're, like really moving well. So then, like other parts like establish collaboration protocols with tech stack working groups. So, like having that firm handshake with what the respective working groups are doing. And then I would say publishing this strategy as well once, we're done with all of those internal alignments. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. I mean, and thank you for that. I think, and so let's do that. Let's take it next week. I think it's Mondays that we're meeting.
Yep.
And between now and then, we'll go through this, make comments, and then let's discuss it in a little bit more detail. But also for the rest, for Lynn and Kevin and Carla on the call, at the beginning of the year, it's usually a time that we reassess and say, okay, what do we, because we want people to come to these meetings. Today we're 7. We want people to come who are getting value from the meeting or finding something interesting and have something to contribute or have something to, I always say that these working groups are selfish. Like, we're all here for selfish purposes because they're allowing us to have nice conversations that we can't have elsewhere. They're allowing us to make connections, or to practice understanding what's going on. So what would you guys find valuable for spending an hour every other Thursday doing within this context of ecosystem and governance?
I guess I can go first. I'm working on a proposal with Drummond to get funding for interoperability, and I see governance and the trust registry authorities pulled into that. So that's fun.
Okay.
That's dropped in.
Yeah, I think that we should, the trust registries obviously last year were coming up, and people were realizing that, yeah, these are a thing we need to get our heads wrapped around. So yeah, I agree that we should try to figure out how to work to that end to make sure that we can help people get the resources they need with the trust registries and understanding it. Lynn, what would you say?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Carly.
Just going to add about trust registries that I missed the meeting today. I was caught up in work. But we can also, as part of Bite Size Trust, extend that to be a slightly longer thing about what are trust registries and how to use them and stuff like that. And I think trust registry centralized, but then also trust registry functionalities decentralized to decentralized trust working graph, the decentralized trust graph, because you can get recommendations from friends, which is kind of the functionality of a trust registry, but not centralized.
That's a great idea. Yeah, we can add it.
Yeah. Okay. Lynn, any thoughts or ideas?
No, thanks, Eric. I'm just trying to take it all in. There are so many working groups that I only attend 2 primarily, but I'll have to look at it more closely. I'm very interested, but I'm not sure where I can contribute the most here, especially not being technical.
But what do you want? Let's take it from contribute. What do you want?
Yes, okay. I see. That's a good perspective. I'll think about that.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a maybe something I mentioned it. What I find is we're very much focused on governance in the sense that we know that governance is not an overlay, and the governance needs to be built into the architecture from the from inception, and how tightly that could be bound and sort of integrated into business logic, and especially with AIs. But so governance and tech, one of the things that we have is the meta model, which seems to be a really good, strong, robust document. It served well for as the foundation for some pretty big governance applications. I think even with Glyph, right? And when I'm talking to people who are working on projects and realize that now's the time to tackle governance, and then I point them to the meta model, and maybe let me just share my screen real quickly. Can I share my screen, Mackie?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. and I point them, where am I here? Can you see this? Is it too small?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I point them to the meta model, and I'm like, there it is. Um, have at it. And you realize that there's no shortcut. You're like, okay, no governance crap. I gotta read, and it's pretty dense. And where do I start? And you say, well, it's all in there. All you have to do is read and figure it out. And this is just the first document because there's supporting documents and all that. Um, I went in and did some vibe coding and said, how can we take the governance meta model and have people do a quick sort of rough draft? Because by answering these questions in the meta model, what is the purpose of this governance framework or this trust framework? What is the scope? What is in scope? What's out of scope? What are the objectives? What are the principles? Requirements? All these kind of things that you have to write from the start. And I kind of reverse engineered it to say, well, if we could give them prompts, what's your use case? What's your industry? And again, this is just a quick 5-minute vibe coding kind of thing. Who's involved? Who is who wants to send information that they want to be verifiable or verified and trusted? What kind of data, what kind of information you're sending, et cetera. So I was thinking that maybe we could do something to make it easier for people to digest this really good and hearty governance meta model, because it's really valuable and it would help. But there might be a way to get people sort of on the path a little bit more quickly. Carly.
Just to add to this, I like the Scott said we do have the meta model guide, and I can't
Yeah.
remember what was in that. I like the idea of walking through in order to build it. I wanted to say you could even write out a context prompt for that because I was just doing that where I was like, oh, I have to write an about page. And I'm like, oh, how do I get started and stuff? Normally you'd start looking at examples, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, I'll try it this way. And I asked the AI, I said, ask me one question at a time. You are going to build for me an about page. And so one question at a time, ask me about the content or what you should emphasize and so on. And then it prompted me and I walked through and answered a bunch of questions. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that and so on. And then at the end, it spit it out.
Yeah.
So that's very similar to your approach there, but in a conversational tone. And I just said that to support the idea that sometimes
Yeah.
it's easier to write it when somebody's asking you direct questions, and then you're like, wait a minute, do I want that or not?
Yeah. Yeah. I was just trying to figure out a way to make it easier, but it's like staring at a blank page or just starting and say, well, no, just answer some questions and let's get you something that you can react to and you can revise, but at least you've gotten that first draft. So that was just something that might be interesting. And I don't know if it will help. But yeah, just trying to figure out ways to get the meta model adopted.
That I like that. I mean, one output we could do then would be to refine it and make it as a tool to say, hey, start filling out your meta model guide. Here are the questions. And then now start filling out the meta model. Here are the questions. Now go to the guide and go to, and here's your first draft, which is still missing stuff. Now read the guide. And then now it's easier to edit than to stare at a blank page, like you said,
Mhm.
Eric. And it's
Mhm.
easier to answer a question, direct question being asked than it is to be like, oh, what should I be putting here? I like that. I like that a lot. And that's one thing that we could work on.
Mhm. Okay.
Carla, what what do
Yes.
you want out
What do
of
you want?
ecosystem?
Christmas.
Well, I do have a question
Yeah.
off of this last topic, and it was quite some time ago, and I see that Drummond hasn't been able to join us. Um, that I I checked with him. I think it was at the end of, yeah, it was as I was starting the 2025 revision of the ecosystem governance framework for the VLEI, because he had mentioned to me earlier on that there was some contemplation about updating the structure of the ecosystem meta model, and I wanted to be able to see if I should be adopting that now
Hmm.
um, or at that time. And I'm still seeing in what Eric put on that, it's still the one that Glyph used in
Hmm.
order to be able to, so the structure has
Hmm.
not changed. Is that
Hmm.
still under consideration?
Do you see gaps? I think based on your experience and any other feedback that we get, if you have experienced gaps in the meta model, we have a discussion about that and update it to version 2. We could do
The
that.
and maybe it's just uh the 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 situation that we're in with the VLEI. I look at the governance framework as the whole governance framework, and I always found that it was a little bit strange in order to be able to have a governance document that was just a governance requirements document. Um, I struggled a bit, and finally thought that the only thing that made sense was to point out the governance that surrounded the LEI because that was the identification piece that the VLEI was dependent on, type of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and if there is going to be a consideration of the update of the meta model, my point would be to try to be able to put this all together, make a bigger announcement, make a coordinated announcement about it to release the guidance at the same time of the change, and then that could make sense.
I hadn't heard that, but maybe Scott knows something that we don't know.
I don't. So I think the only area that has been explored, and I haven't been going to the governance architecture meetings, but I think that's where changes were happening mostly around the architecture and the governance piece to the our four-tier architecture. But I would like to be involved in any change that would be made to the governance meta model, and I have not.
Hmm.
So if Drummond is making assertions about that, I would say that they're assertions from his personal perspective, not in any collaboration with me.
Okay, well, I asked the question in October of last year, maybe September, so it's been some time because I
Yeah.
start the annual review with a lot of lead up time to the end of the year. So,
Well, and I can also say that, in Drummond's conversations on his personal, um, you know, objectives around the first person project and communities, has never mentioned that they would use the trust over IP meta model. He just says, oh, communities are going to develop their own governance frameworks.
I mean, and this could be again, they'll need a model if all the communities are developing their own governance framework. So,
But he's not advising to use the
right.
governance meta model.
All
So,
right. Okay. All right.
okay.
Okay. Well,
we
I
certainly are, though. I'm sorry. Because the VLEI was developed in order to be able to address a particular need within bigger frameworks, in effect. And so we are encouraging those applications and communities of users in order to be able to develop their governance using the same approach that we did so that they can mesh together more easily.
Mhm. You're on mute, Scott. Scott, you're on mute.
So thank you for that. And we are advancing the governance method model in other scenarios. Obviously I've brought that to the CHBA. There's another consortium that I'm working with. Hopefully we'll finalize an agreement and we'll bring the meta model to that consortium. So, I'd say, Carla, if there's any constituents that want to know more about implementing the meta model, just direct them towards me and I can help them.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
I have done one thing for my own benefit with the meta model, and I did a bit of a reorganization to fit my way of thinking, so that I have all the questions that I needed to answer about who are the parties in the ecosystem, issuers, holders, who are verifiers, who are administrators, who are policy vetter, whatever, but any party to the ecosystem. I wanted to be able to answer all those questions at one time and focus on parties, and then have another section that focus completely on, what is the data being exchanged, what kind of information is being exchanged, and then and then another section on, all right, what's the purpose, the objective, the mission, et cetera. And I was trying to map it out to our ecosystem components, which are, you've got the governance framework, and you've got verifiable parties exchanging verifiable data, and you've got, who are the trust anchors, and then you've got, for what use case in what business context. But and so I did this reorg for my own self to see if it'd be easier for an outsider who's not intimately familiar with the meta model would be able to approach it that much easier, because again, they're coming at it from a viewpoint of, I got a business problem to solve. I've got to exchange information with people who I either trust or I don't trust, or I need to build an audit trail. And so so I've done that, and that might be something to kind of look at. I just moved things around to see if it fit. I think it kind of fits, but I didn't, the entire meta model is still there, all intact, but just a little bit different order. So I might try to clean that up and share it with us to see if it helps. Although I don't want to mess with Scott's work. So that will be we can share that just as an exercise.
Go ahead and give it a go. I mean, whatever works for a community is what I would suggest as well. So.
Yeah.
I'm going through this again and wondering, are there examples of text? Like if you say, oh, you like the principles, you have to write your principles. And I'm looking through the guidebook, trying to see if there are, because sometimes I draw a blank until I see an example or two. Could we add, if there aren't any?
Examples, what do you mean?
Like, okay, so for example, if one of the principles is transparency, then the governance framework should include policies such as all meetings must be open to the public, or all meeting minutes must be posted to the principal. So it's nice to see a few worked examples.
Starter thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh yeah, I like that one, and I like that one. I mean, that's what I get a lot out of the chat GPT and whatever else, because then I'm like, give me a bunch of menu options, and then I'm going to start looking at it, and then I'm going to think about what I could do with it, and if I like one or two or want to change it or something like that.
Slowly, you're getting lazy.
Yeah, I know. Well, but I am I the only? No, I really need examples. I really suck getting started without examples. And
Yeah.
and so even more, if I had to pick between the instructions and the examples, I'd go to the examples first every time. So
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know if I'm the only one, but
Yeah. Well, so we've got Mackey's strategy document that we're going to look at, and I think that'll help us give a little bit of direction. I think what Kevin mentioned about the work happening with the trust registry, and is that attached to the decentralized trust graph? Or that's the connection? Can you maybe repeat that, Kevin?
Yeah, it's the DTG is part of this. It's
Yeah.
interoperability between all the tech components that people are building.
Yeah.
And what would like to include is the authority structure, the governance structure, as part of that, if possible.
If you've got anything that I mean, a slide, a paragraph, sort of just little bit of detail or context that I think we'd be happy to discuss that at the next meeting and see if there's a way we could organize some resources and work on that.
I put in the chat a decentralized trust graph governance because if Drummond's not promoting the meta model, that doesn't mean that we can't use the meta model in order to write an example, which would then guide when you have an example that people can just go in and edit, then that's going to be more likely to be adopted than starting from scratch. So we could encourage best practices by putting something up already.
Yeah,
I
especially
should have something ready by this weekend, so I'll try and share.
Okay, great. Yeah, that'd be great. And my issue, I can't join the trust graph working group because I've got a standing meeting, so I can't join any of that. I feel a little bit left out. So if there, I know we can follow them asynchronously, but if this is a way to sort of contribute and get involved, that might be interesting.
And then this is a way, like, you don't learn it until you start picking it apart, and you don't pick apart just sitting there in a meeting listening.
Yeah. And I think if we get those foundations in place to make sure the interoperability, because that's the whole point, is it needs to be interoperable. Okay, good. What else?
I think we're done.
Oh.
7 minutes early. Yep, Kevin?
Yeah, could I have a link to that document that we're looking at today? I couldn't find it in the conflicts.
Oh, Maki, did you put a link to that?
Yeah, the strategy document. Yeah, I'll share it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Does everybody have access to the Google Drive for Trust over IP?
Do you
Because
want to put that link, Carly?
I would like to copy move the document into the Trust over IP folder. So we have the shared drive. I'm going to go back up. I have it permanently open because I'm always on bite-sized trust stuff. So I'm just going to pull up. This would be the folder to put it in.
Okay. Governance and processes.
Ecosystem and governance working group folder on the last drive that the last link I just posted. That is Trust over IP's Google Drive, which we all should have access to. And if you don't, send me an email and I will get you access. And Mackie, could you move or create a copy of your pillars document and put it in there so that it's accessible to all the members?
Yes, I'll do that now. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so that's the official thing. If you're looking for bite-sized trust, by the way, it's in the comms. We put it in communications rather than in ecosystem and governance, but I could move that back but it's just if you're curious about where it ended up, it's in comms.
Okay, a communications committee.
Yep.
Okay.
Which doesn't exist.
Which doesn't exist. But they're getting a lot of content made. All the LinkedIn ads for the events that we host is in comms, and the bite-sized trust is in comms. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
we'll have a look at the pillars. We'll meet again.
Yeah, thanks for doing that, Mackie. Thank you. Great
Yeah.
stuff.
Awesome.
Thank you very
Bunch
much
of stuff.
everyone for attending. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
All
Bye.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.